No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 368 and breaking right now. The sane Western world horrified by the failure of multiculturalism in the Disunited Kingdom, with more evidence today of an Islamist takeover putting our safety at risk, and an increasing willful blindness from the elite class and MSM about what's really going on.
Of dozens of men in a children's play park right next to a migrant hotel. Now look, they're even playing on the swings. They're getting drunk and they're causing crime in local areas. We know nothing about these migrant men.
What? It's got to do with you. Why you got a camera? I speak with my friend. Okay. Tell him this is what's walking about our children's school. You little bitch.
What's that, mate? You're the one protest.
Women like that.
This comes as our safety is put under direct threat as a suspected Islamic terrorist questioned over bombings that killed 269 people, including 6 Brits, in Sri Lanka, now in the UK seeking asylum, prompting outrage from Tommy Robinson. But oh no, our crooked regime media, including the completely discredited British bashing corporation, they're focused on trying to cancel Nigel Farage for comments made in a school playground 5 decades ago. Unfortunately, he seems to be giving in to this ludicrous charade.
Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, says he's never directly racially abused anybody. He follows allegations in the Guardian newspaper that he was racist and anti-Semitic towards pupils while at school.
I've never directly racially abused anybody, no.
Again, define directly for me. What do you mean by directly?
By taking it out on an individual on the basis of who they are or what they are, no.
Again, taking it out on somebody is different to saying.
Have I ever
to
misspoken in my life, in my younger days when I was a child? Probably.
Are they telling the truth, Mr.
Well,
Farage?
suddenly after 49 years, they seem to have perfect recollection. I would say to you, there is a strong political element to this.
Okay, again, a slightly different answer to the question. Are they telling the truth?
No, they're not telling the truth.
What a farce. And GB News, which claims to be a channel of free speech, has refused to screen an interview with axed Talk TV presenter Mike Graham in a new censorship outrage. The great news is that we have obtained the footage here at Outspoken, and we will play you the conversation they decided their viewers shouldn't see.
I just thought, it's time for me to now show my mettle. Please, I'm not running away and hiding. I'm going to start a new show very, very soon. It's going to be a breakfast show. So I'm going to go, let's get back on the horse, because this story is not going away. I tweeted that out the other day. There's more and more migrants coming here every single day, even in this weather. Out and south, undocumented, put up in hotels. The government's got a clue what they're doing. I just think, it's time that people like me stood up and said, do something about it.
The full censored GB News interview with Mike Graham coming up. We'll also get analysis from today's superstar panel, freedom fighter and legal expert Elizabeth Fox and social commentator Leilani Dowding, whose X account proudly proclaims conspiracies and the countryside. And I have to say, Leilani, on the countryside note, I am delighted that this week you finally named one of your famous chooks after me. Look, there I am. There I am.
Your head's cut off in that one. There's a really
no,
great...
there it is.
You are.
There it is.
You are, Danny.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Just don't eat it, Leilani. Not yet, anyway. Also coming up on the show today, the Lucy Connolly dinner drama continues as it emerges. The London restaurant Joe Allen, who tried to cancel us, lied about the cost of the dinner bill and the reality about the trolling that they had received after I posted that now infamous picture. So we will have all of the latest developments on that. Then in the uncancelled after show on Substack, the real reason Meghan Markle is now officially one of the world's 3 most hated celebrities of 2025, alongside Ellen DeGeneres and P. Diddy. That's awkward. We'll have all the latest from our royal mastermind, Angela Levin. We'll also reveal a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at the end of the show. Of course, you vote for the worst Britain in the world today on the YouTube live chat, so you can do so right now. Here are your 3 nominees. Samir Shah, nominated by It's Only Me 44, the chairman of the BBC, for saying that there was a plausible case for editing Donald Trump's Capitol Hill speech. Bob Villain. He's going to feature in my digest, nominated by Scottfly239, who says he's now taken an unusual pivot to playing the victim card after calling for the death of Israelis. I knew that was coming, to be honest. And Ed Davey, nominated by MattCass48, who says it's like watching Zach Polanski's embarrassing uncle. Being more cringe than Zach should really be Mission Impossible, but he manages it. So 3 interesting choices. Get voting. Keep your comments coming in. I'll read out some of the best at the end of the show. But now, let's go. The eyes of the Western world continue to look to the Disunited Kingdom with growing horror at the Islamist takeover, the failure of multiculturalism, and the suicidal empathy coming from our completely toothless leaders and elite class. So much so that this BBC poll has gone viral.
Twain shall meet, unfortunately, on this one. We do have to bring you our vote because you have been voting in the text and online vote today. So here is the result. Is multiculturalism working? Here is what you told us. 5% of those of you who voted said yes, it is. 95% of those of you who voted this morning said no, it isn't.
Okay, so that poll has been exploding all over the internet over the past 48 hours. The problem is that, as Tommy Robinson pointed out, this poll is over a decade old. The guest, who we saw on that show, Vivienne Westwood, is now dead. And the British Bashing Corporation would simply never ask a poll, or they'd never conduct a poll like that. They'd never ask the people a question like that, because the horror examples of the chaos and carnage on our streets are so plentiful, and there is proof, thanks to a poll like that, that the vast majority of the population has been ignored for the past decade, or I would argue far longer than that. Just today, illegal migrants have been caught wandering around a children's primary school, with kids as young as 5 attending in Aberdeen. Watch.
What? It's got to do with you. Why you got a camera? I speak with my friend. Tell him this is what's walking about our children's school.
Ex-military hero and London Mayor contender Ant Middleton has called on locals to set up roaming patrols in your communities and move them on. He says you can apply force where necessary, know your rights, people, and start protecting your communities. That was after Adam Brooks reported this shocking new video from AY Audits. Watch.
This video was uploaded by AY Audits today of dozens of men in a children's play park right next to a migrant hotel. Now look, they're even playing on the swings. They're getting drunk and they're causing crime in local areas. We know nothing about these migrant men. Now, if you was a woman with a child, would you take your kid to that children's play park? If you say yes, you're lying. Now, would a group of women take their kids there? No way. Absolutely no way. You do not know what these men are capable of. We are paying for these men to get drunk and loiter about our streets and hang around children's play parks.
And these illegals have no respect for our culture, as Ben on Wine posted a video of an immigrant calling a woman a little bitch right in front of police officers who didn't even acknowledge it. He actually tells the woman, the patriot, to move on. And Ben on Wire concludes things are getting bad in two-tier Britain. This will enable these thugs to go one step further next time. Watch.
You little bitch. What's that, mate? Hey, you're the one. Yeah. Protest. There's lots of women like that. Women like that.
But the leftists and politicians refuse to tackle the elephant in the room. And as I say, people from America are just looking over bemused. As Wall Street Mav posted, white people led by a hijabi woman protesting for refugees' welcome. What has gone wrong in these people's heads, where this is the top issue that gets them out protesting, supporting their own replacement? Are they being paid? What motivates this? Watch.
Tell me what Manchester looks like. This is what Manchester looks like. Tell me what Manchester looks like. This is what Manchester looks like. Tell me what Manchester looks like. This is what Manchester looks like. Tell me what Manchester looks like. This is what Manchester looks like.
Well, it might be what Manchester looks like now. That's not a good thing. And I just get so mad about how the elite class just shrug off these very intense and very real threats to our safety. Look at this most recent example that Tommy Robinson is reporting. A suspected Islamic terrorist questioned over bombings that killed 269 people in Sri Lanka is seeking asylum in the UK. In other words, is living in the UK already. This unnamed invader was arrested over allegations that he was involved in the 2019 Easter bombings in the country. The blast killed 6 Britons, including a mother and her 2 children. The man, who has been granted anonymity, why? Why? Left Sri Lanka in 2022 after being arrested and released on bail over the attacks in which suicide bombers targeted luxury hotels and churches. Send him home now. Get him out of here now. And every politician should be demanding that. But of course, just like so much, it is shrugged off by our regime media, which has decided to be more outraged about this woman, this patriotic woman, this hero, this Australian hero. It was a great honour for me to meet her earlier this year at CPAC in Australia, having followed her career for many, many years. I'm talking, of course, about Pauline Hanson, who has finally brought her calls to ban the burqa to international attention after this brilliant stunt in the Australian Senate yesterday went viral, but has seen her suspended from her job. But good on Pauline Hanson. Today, she doubled down.
And when they denied me that right to ban the burqa, well, if you don't want to ban the burqa, then I'll go and put it on. And that's exactly what I did. And that even upset them more. So you don't want to ban it, but you don't want me wearing it.
Step why we saw the agenda. Are you aware of any incident in Australia?
It's not about incidents. It's not about incidents. It's the same thing as what I put up about climate change, or I put up about immigration policies, and I've spoken against multiculturalism. It's having a vision for the future, where the country's headed.
She's completely right. And I spoke to Pauline at CPAC in Australia, and she's utterly horrified about what's happened in the United Kingdom. She actually is trying to stop what's happened in the United Kingdom coming to Australia. She said she wouldn't even feel safe to be here anymore. And where are our British politicians, by the way, backing that type of sensible position? Why isn't Reform UK Sarah Pochen walking into the House of Commons in a burqa too tomorrow, given she backs the ban? It would make the same point all around the world. Once again, it's been left to the unelected Tommy Robinson to speak out on this and back Pauline Hanson. He wrote, the larger question is about face coverings. The burqa is just part of that discussion. The niqab also. Pop into East London or Birmingham or Luton sometime and see for yourself. I stand with Pauline Hanson. Ban the burqa. It's medieval. It's a cage for women. It segregates women from the rest of the population, and it's backward and retarded. So much of the fear, of course, the reason behind the silence, is because the mainstream media remain determined to call anyone racist. But I have to say, I now share the position of Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe, who argued, I get called racist on a daily basis. That word has entirely lost all meaning now. It only has power if you believe it does. Don't cower. Don't apologize. Don't squirm. There is one appropriate response. I don't care. But that's quite the opposite reaction to that of Nigel Farage, who remains terrified, wrongly terrified in my belief, of the MSM turning on him, based on this bullshit Guardian report about what he apparently said in his school playground 50 years ago. But last night, the British Bashing Corporation joined this campaign.
Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, says he's never directly racially abused anybody. It follows allegations in the Guardian newspaper that he was racist and anti-Semitic towards pupils while at school. Well, Joe Pike is live at Westminster for us. Joe, what's the background to all this?
Clive, more than a dozen former pupils told The Guardian they witnessed offensive behaviour from Nigel Farage when he was at Dulwich College in South London in the late 1970s and early 1980s. One Jewish pupil said he was targeted by Mr Farage, and Mr Farage would tell him Hitler was right and gas them. Another pupil who is non-white said he was targeted and told to go back where he'd come from, and there were various other claims. Now, the Party Reform UK said these allegations are entirely without foundation, but today was the first chance for Mr Farage to respond to those allegations on the record and on camera. As you say, he denied that he had directly racially abused anyone, said many of these claims have a huge political element to them, said that these claims were from almost 50 years ago, but did concede he may have taken part in what he described as playground banter.
This is nuts. The correct answer for Nigel to these mainstream media journalists is piss off. Seriously, piss off. Who gives a damn what I said in the playground 50 years ago? Is this all you've got? Is this all you've got? When Starmer is destroying the country? When jury trials are about to be ruled out of the United Kingdom on what I believe is the first step to the end of democracy in this country, and you're talking to me about what I said in the playground 50 years ago? You are a joke. That's what Nigel Farage should have said to Woke ITV News last night. But instead, he looked really uncomfortable during this bizarre grilling. Watch.
Did you racially abuse fellow pupils when you were at school?
No, this is 49 years ago, by the way. 49 years ago. Have I ever tried to take it out on any individual on the basis of where they're from? No.
At school, categorically on the record, you did not racially abuse fellow pupils?
I would never, ever do it in a hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing it.
It's 49 years ago. It's 49 years ago.
What difference is it? What difference to the time?
Isn't it? Well, I just entered my teens. Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation or engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse on that basis? No.
You're not quite. That's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school? No. You've caveated it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
No what?
No. I have never directly really tried to go and hurt anybody.
Nigel, seriously, what's happening to you? You need to be Trumpian about this. Because the Labour Party just ate up that interview, posting on their official feed. Nigel Farage just repeatedly failed to deny claims he racially abused fellow pupils at school. As Nick Dixon put it, the irony is Farage answered this badly precisely because he buys into the prevailing ideology, which says that racism is the ultimate evil. If he was less bothered, he would be more evil in their eyes, yet more impervious to their struggle sessions. And I completely agree with that. And he was much more comfortable during the rally in Wales a few minutes later, where he slammed the Tories for the Nazi slur by its chairman towards Reform UK.
And yet, the Tory chairman last night, Kevin Hollingrake, puts out on social media and compares our supporters, our members, to those who in the 1930s joined the Nazi Party. Not only is it insulting and wrong, but it's actually insightful and dangerous given the world we live in. Just think, that's exactly what they were saying about Charlie Kirk in the United States of America. Shame on him. Shame on him.
And even though I think the post on X by the Tories was idiotic and we need to stop comparing those on the right to the goddamn Nazis. Remember, the Nazis were actually hard leftist socialists, okay? I do respect Kemi Badenoch for refusing to apologise. Not often I say I respect her, but watch this.
Your chairman appeared to compare Reform to the Nazis in a recent tweet. Are Reform like the Nazis?
He didn't actually say anything at all. He just put a link to a Wikipedia page of who else had golden historical badges. And let's be clear, Reform has got much bigger problems. On Friday, they had the leader of the party in Wales sentenced to prison for 10 years for spying on our country for Russia. I think that's a much bigger deal than a tweet.
Your former colleague, Suella Braverman, has said that Kevin Hollinrake got this wrong. Will you take this opportunity to condemn that tweet from your chairman?
I think given that when Sarah Pochin said she didn't like seeing black and brown faces on TV, Nigel Farage refused to apologise. I'm not going to apologise for a tweet that was made in jest. There's far too much time spent on silly things like tweets at a time when we've got a budget on Wednesday. Your viewers are out there really worried about what's going to be coming, more tax rises. As leader of the opposition, my job is to focus on Labour. People can make jokes on Twitter, that's fine. Right now, I've got to focus on what's going on out there.
Yeah, I don't actually disagree with her. But Farage was also right not to apologise for Sarah Pochin. Sarah Pochin said nothing wrong. So what all of these people need to do is just laugh off these ludicrous attacks by a completely corrupt mainstream media. A mainstream media which, by the way, is the enemy of the people. Have you seen who they are trying to rehabilitate over the past 24 hours? But I'm sure you won't be surprised. It's worth watching, though. Yep, that violence-supporting anti-Semite who called for the murder of everyone in the IDF, Bob Villan. He is now the victim.
I have become a public target of this country and the institutions that it has under its control and at its disposal. So, yes, that can be the police force. It can also be the media. It is also the politicians, because there are politicians that have gotten involved in the actions of a punk band. It does not surprise me, I suppose, that this country would want to use everything it has at its disposal to break me. It does not surprise me, because I have seen it through history. I have to just continue to rise to the occasion. If it's a criminal investigation, I'll fight that. If it's the media, I will fight that. You know, if it's the politicians and the lobby groups behind them, I will fight that. They've picked the wrong one. I was 13 or 14 with posters of Malcolm X and Huey Newton on my wall, reading Marcus Garvey, painting my bedroom red, black and green, and painting a Pan-African flag on the whole wall.
Your mum loved that, yeah?
She was indifferent to it. That is who I am at my core. I believe in what I'm doing. I will not be moved.
No, you are a violence-supporting prick. That's what you are. And if you're on the other side of politics, you would be cancelled by the mainstream media. Now they're trying to paint you as some sort of victim. It's insane. And remember, the MSM have also decided to ignore the type of faux pas that would be leading the news were it a Reform or Tory politician who had made it. I mean, this one is actually unbelievable, folks, but I'm here for it. Calamity Lammy, our truly calamitous Deputy Prime Minister, told staff at the Ministry of Justice that his second top male role model was Bill Cosby. As Chris Rose put it, yes, Bill, who was accused by over 60 women for rape, drug-facilitated sexual assault, sexual battery, child sexual abuse, and sexual harassment. Odd choice. Guido Fawkes, which broke this story, reported that Lammy was recording a video for the Ministry of Justice International Men's Day. He said growing up, his personal top male role model was Nelson Mandela, so far so predictable. When asked who his second top choice was, the Deputy Prime Minister said Bill Cosby. The footage had to be cut. Of course, the first allegations against Bill Cosby were made in late 1965. This was very well known. And in 2022, Cosby was found liable in the Los Angeles Supreme Court for having sexually assaulted a 16-year-old girl. The Ministry of Justice officially declined to comment, but a source close to Lammy, doing some terrible damage control, said, this is a distortion. Lammy's view is that Cosby's crimes were abhorrent and he does not represent a role model for anyone in society. Lammy has previously talked about Cosby being seen as a role model in the 1980s for many young men before his horrific crimes were known, in an era when positively portrayed black faces were few and far between on TV. Interesting that he still named him as his second favourite man ever in that case. As Carol Malone put it, OMG, it just never stops. Hashtag thick as mints. And I mean, seriously, the UK's second in command really is as thick as mints.
If it feels like neighbourhood policing has vanished, it's not around you. We haven't seen a police while I've been here, and I've been here for a little while now.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their research into radiation?
Antoinette.
Curie. James Gandolfini played a mafia boss called Tony in which American television series?
Godfather.
The Sopranos. Which variety of blue English cheese traditionally accompanies port?
Leicester.
Stilton. Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI. In chemistry, what French word is used for a tube for transferring measured amounts of liquids?
Pass. I will leave it for the public to come to their own judgments about someone who once flirted with Hitler Youth when he was younger. That is for the...
Thick as mints and dangerous. But of course, with that mob set to destroy the economy in tomorrow's budget, it's only a matter of time before a massive clear out, even though the truly delusional Rachel Thieves told Labour MPs last night, I'll show the media, I'll show the Tories, I will not let them beat me. I'll be there on Wednesday, I'll be there next year, and I'll be back the year after. Yeah, right, love. Problem is that even your most senior colleagues don't believe that. With Wes Streeting's allies now plotting a coronation after May's election. The Health Secretary's backers say he is a safer bet to replace Keir Starmer than left-wing rivals like Angela Rayner, and that changing leader should not involve a contest. All I can say is 3 words. General election now. For analysis, let me bring in today's superstar panel. Leilani Dowding and Elizabeth Fox both with me today. Leilani, isn't it extraordinary contrasting the bravery of an Australian Prime Minister like Pauline Hanson, who is prepared to actually put her money where her mouth is, go into the Australian Senate wearing this burqa, allow all of the left to prove their total hypocrisy, which is that they want to ban her for wearing something that they claim there's no issue with, compared to our politicians who still tiptoe around what's really going on in this country, Leilani, the true danger that we are facing because of the fear of being called racist. And didn't we see it there in that TV interview with Nigel Farage, where I think he should have just said, you're being utterly ridiculous, but instead is clearly terrified.
Absolutely, Dan. I think this is a problem. People are too scared of hurty words. And we're in a situation now in this country where there are people getting stabbed in a daily basis, even at school. So they're talking to Nigel about what happened when he was at school 50 years ago. In school now, children get stabbed, right? Children get stabbed on the streets. Women get dragged down alleyways, into churchyards, on the beach, into toilets, into bushes, and they're getting raped. And we're talking still about hurty words. I mean, it's gone crazy, Dan. I just saw that there was somebody involved with dealing 200 million pounds worth of heroin into the country. They got suspended sentences, and Lucy Connolly went to jail for hurty words. It's like, to me, It's under co-tyranny. They want to put people away for words. They don't want to put people away that are causing the real issues. So they keep on talking about hurty words, bad tweets, bad social media posts, what you did when you were a child 50 years ago. But they will not talk about what is going on today around this country, because I think, you know, they're allowing it and they're facilitating it.
And
they're
it's
letting
too
it happen.
horrific, isn't it? It's too horrific for words. And then Elizabeth Fox, you know, you're a legal expert, trained lawyer, and we learned today that pretty much all jury trials are going to go, you know, such a fundamental part of our system. And to me, again, this is the chipping away at the mirage of democracy Like, what is the UK justice system if we do not have a jury trial? Yet they try and say, oh, this is all just about clearing the backlog. Well, we only have a backlog in place because of your incompetence. And you're now going to use that incompetence to strip away our right to be judged by our peers, which I think is increasingly important at a time when I am losing faith. I mean, I've probably already lost faith, and I imagine you have, in our justice system in many ways.
Completely. You're so right. First of all, it's not democracy if we are not free to. It is our right to have a jury trial, and it's not a valid reason to say just because they have a backlog because of their incompetency, or because, hold on a minute, we have a backlog because why? We have so many more crimes now being committed because we have an influx of people coming into this country illegally that are committing a lot of crimes, serious crimes, and therefore there are long lists. All the courts up and down this country where people are waiting for trials, people are waiting to actually have these people that have committed crimes convicted. We should always be able to have the right to have a jury trial. It is absolutely one of our fundamental rights within the justice system. But unfortunately, we don't have a justice system. We don't.
No, we don't.
Because like Lani's example just there, somebody got a suspended sentence for one thing, somebody else goes to jail for hurty words.
Totally. And meanwhile, Leilani, we learn, but again, we only learn because we follow this stuff, right? And we look for these stories that in the UK is a suspected Islamist terrorist who was actually partly responsible, it looks like, for those bombings in Sri Lanka, which killed 6 Brits. And, you know, it's written as like, oh, this asylum seeker is seeking asylum in the United Kingdom. No, Leilani, he's here already. This Islamist terrorist is here illegally, and we are allowing him here, and we're not revealing his name. I mean, honestly, I despair.
Well, this is the thing, and I feel like this is why there are so many protests up and down the country where people end up getting called racist because they see this and they're sick of it. So, you know, obviously, as you said, we follow this kind of thing, so we see it. And let's not forget the man that raped a woman in Hyde Park who was living in a taxpayer-funded hotel, the Hilton Hotel. He had also been jailed for creating bombs in Egypt. So this isn't a one-off that we have terrorists coming in here. And as you said, if they're here and are claiming asylum, it means they're here already. You don't claim asylum from abroad. You have to get yourself into the country. You say, oh, I'm an asylum seeker. They're going to persecute me if I get sent back. So that's how they do it. And, you know, it's funny. They're even getting rewarded for their crimes, because I've seen cases where there have been rapists that have said, well, you know, I'm now a convicted rapist. If I get sent back to Pakistan or Afghanistan, I'm going to be persecuted because they don't allow rapists in my country. You know, they come down a lot harder. So for me, this is absolute insanity that this is going on. And we're literally allowing it to happen in this country. Multiculturalism has completely and utterly failed.
Yes. Yes, it has. And we just have to start saying it time and again. As, by the way, that BBC poll proved, 95% of people. Just wanted to share a couple of posts on this breaking news about the jury trials. Julia Hartley-Brewer wrote, a couple of years ago, I did jury service for the first time. I was overwhelmed by how seriously all of my fellow jurors took their duty to deliver the right verdict. It isn't a perfect system, but it's the best one humans have ever come up with. We must fight to keep it. And Bernie Spofford responded saying, I've also done jury service and agree. Everyone took it incredibly seriously. We reviewed evidence, asked questions and made decisions. I refuse to allow this to be scrubbed from justice without us even voting for the change. And I agree. This is about democracy. This is our next fight. Okay, this is our fight now to protect our justice system, to protect our right to a jury trial. It is everything about being British. And they can't simply just nod this through based on incompetence. It's not going to fly. And I'm going to be speaking and campaigning much more about this in the coming weeks. So this one's really shocking. Really shocking. GB News claims to be the free speech channel. But we've known for a long time, certainly ever since my exit from the channel, that they're anything but. And we've also increasingly learned about the serious contenders in our space who are banned from appearing on GB News whatsoever. From Tommy Robinson to Katie Hopkins, but the list is long. So when Alex Armstrong, the new primetime weekend host on GB News, went to the Pink Ladies protest in Essex over the weekend, I was delighted to see and be told that he had interviewed Mike Graham. Mike Graham, of course, had just been axed from Talk TV, and I think is going to become a very powerful force in the independent media, even though many people don't agree with his stance, for example, on Tommy Robinson. But what happened is that Alex Armstrong ended up presenting a segment on the Pink Ladies protest, and lo and behold, the star speaker, the guy who everyone had turned up to see, the guy who had made the controversial comments on the day and hadn't spoken out to the mainstream media at all, was completely erased from the coverage that GB News put to air. Now, I've got that deleted or that censored interview. I've managed to get hold of it via an independent journalist who was on the scene. So I'm going to play you it in just a moment. But first, this is the coverage that GB News did actually put out of the event, excluding Mike Graham altogether.
Trust me, it was freezing there yesterday. But there is quite a clear and consistent message from these ladies as to why their voices are needed now more than ever. And we also had one very special guest appearance from a dear friend of this show.
And then I thought maybe it's going to be Mike Graham being interviewed. But no, instead it was Adam Brooks, who was already sitting on their panel.
The mainstream media would like to deem people like me as extreme or far right for protesting outside these hotels. So when the Pink Ladies come along, and I was speaking to Orla about it, it was about changing the perception. These are worried mothers, worried grandmothers, aunties, sisters, and there's no more powerful message than a woman saying, I feel scared, or I'm scared for my family, my daughters. And people really started listening once the Pink Ladies stood up.
They even broadcast an interview with the former Reform UK MP James McMurdoch.
I think they're very brave, and I think they're doing really quite important work. The only thing I'd say, and it's one of the reasons why I'm down here, just unofficially, just to sort of show my face, is I'm sorry they're having to do this. You know, a lot of the challenges we're facing are quite preventable. You know, we need some more serious and more sensible policy around a sort of Britain kind of prioritising safety of its citizens and things like that. And I think a lot of people, and I don't like talking about these things, but a lot of people feel like that's not happening. And these very, very brave women are doing a good job of putting that voice out.
But lots of raise the colours here as well. We can see on the flags up there. Lots of people call that far right. What do you make of that?
Oh, come on, it's nonsense, isn't it? This is just a little bit of patriotism, you know. We've got a really, really rich, beautiful history, and I think the only thing to be ashamed of is to be ashamed of that. So, yeah, brilliant people. Go on, Essex.
But not a single second of Mike Graham. And I'm sick of this. I'm completely sick of this. Now, look, this isn't a personal attack on Alex Armstrong. I think he's a good guy, and good on him for actually going and for speaking to Mike Graham. But the bosses are censoring you, and at some point you've got to man up and you've got to call this stuff out. Because Alex Armstrong also covered the Unite the Kingdom rally, Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally, but didn't mention Tommy Robinson, didn't show Tommy Robinson on stage, didn't show Tommy Robinson interviewing Elon Musk, didn't show Katie Hopkins, didn't show Lawrence Fox, didn't show a whole load of the key stars of that rally because they're unpalatable to the GB News audience. And, well, not to the GB News audience, sorry, to the GB News bosses. I think they're actually very palatable to the GB News audience. And I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. So, thanking the independent journalists who were on the scene because they have been able to provide me the interview that GB News refused to broadcast. And I think it's completely safe, right? Like I've reviewed it. I'm going to play it to you now. You can be the judge, but I don't think there's anything that would have, caused issues with the off-communist censors. So there's absolutely no reason why they could not have shown this interview with Mike Graham apart from total gutlessness and an attempt to cancel more people, like they have with me, like they have with Father Calvin, like they have with Lawrence, like they have with Mark Steyn. But the great news is I can show you the interview with Mike Graham. The sound isn't great because we don't have the GB News microphones, but this is the full interview between Mike Graham and Alex Armstrong that GB News refused to air.
I just thought, this is the time for me to now show my mettle. Because I'm not running away and hiding. I'm going to start a new show very, very soon. And it's going to be a breakfast show. And I'm going to go, let's get back on the horse, because this story is not going away. I tweeted that out the other day. There's more and more migrants coming here every single day, even in this weather. Thousands of them, undocumented, being put up in hotels. The government has got a clue what they're doing. And I just think, it's time that people like me stood up and said, do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And I've been to a few of these protests now. The message doesn't seem to sink into the government. Why do you think that is?
Because I think it's too easy for them to make out that, those right-wingers, they're just horrible, they just don't like migrants, they're racist. This is not, as I said before, it's not about skin colour, it's not about nationality. It's about people coming here illegally who have absolutely no right to be here, whether they're from Albania, whether they're from Romania, whether they're from Afghanistan or Eritrea, it doesn't really matter. They can be from any country in the world, but they shouldn't be here. And they need to be punished for coming here illegally. They've committed a crime, and they need to be kicked out straight away.
Simple stuff. Why do you think there's no lefties here today? No stand up to racism? Is it the weather?
No, the lefties don't like bad weather, right? They don't like mornings, they don't like bad weather. I was up at the Reform Conference, and on a Friday afternoon, there's loads of them, right? I went in Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, none of them. Because they don't wake up, they're all still lying there in their, lentil sacks or whatever they sleep in, with their, rope-made pyjamas, and going, well, maybe they don't even know where Essex is actually. It's a bit far out of London, isn't it, to be honest.
I hear there's no buses in Essex as part of Essex today, so that might have been a problem.
That could have been it. Yeah, absolutely right. Anyway, good. I'm glad they're not here, because I think if they had been here, I'd have had to give them this one.
Any message you'd like to give to the government? What would you like to see? If you could change one thing about this crisis, what would you change?
Have an election now and get out, because you don't know what you're bloody well doing.
Mike Graham, it's a pleasure to see you again. Take care. Thank you very much.
To my superstar panel, Elizabeth Fox and Leilani Dowding. Leilani, I'm so sick of this. I am so sick of GB News being the gatekeepers of the right and banning all of these people. There was no reason not to show that interview of Mike Graham. They cannot say that it's for editorial reasons, Leilani, because they ended up showing an interview with Adam Brooks, who I think is a great guy, but he was sitting there on the panel anyway. Do you see what I mean? They already had him on their panel, so they didn't need to show the interview. Mike Graham was the star guest. And so why are they cancelling Mike Graham? Oh, because Talk TV have axed him again over a racism claim, Leilani, which he denies, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I just think, as you said, GB News are gutless. Even when you saw him interview the Reform guy, he was like, well, people say these flags are a bit far right. That's him trying to put in their balance that they want to put in, and I remember it from all these shows that you kind of pick up on it. It's like they have to put something against what's going on because, to appease Ofcom, and it's complete nonsense. We know it's not far right. Why even do you have to even put that out there? But they do it because that's kind of the structure now of these GB News shows. On the plus side, I absolutely loved Mike Graham's big main speech, and I love it when journalists like you, like Mark Steyn, like Lawrence, like Mike Graham, you get fired and you no longer have to appease these censors. You don't have to self-censor anymore. You can just go all, full, go max.
Totally. You're so right, Leilani. I should play the little bit actually that went viral, because a lot of people were saying Mike would never have been able to give a speech like this had he still been tied into the corporate media. Watch this.
Only yesterday, there's another one. Some Afghan bastard has come into this country and sexually assaulted and raped a 12-year-old girl. I mean, what is going on? We don't want these people here, right? I don't care about these, BBC types who go, well, surely you're not saying they're all rapists. Actually, I am saying they're all fucking rapists, Because it's the only language they understand, right? We don't want them here. We don't need them here, and they shouldn't be here. Yes. And we certainly don't want them anywhere near this town in Wethersfield, 600 of them being...
totally unleashed, isn't he, Elizabeth?
He is, but isn't it getting so boring now that everybody is scared of saying, well, not everybody, GB News, for instance, is scared of showing an interview of him speaking the truth. And let's face it, the majority of people actually agree with Mike Graham about what he's saying with regards to illegal immigrants coming into this country and women and children's safety. So it's just getting to the point where, do they expect to just censor everybody and only show the things that they allow and they say is okay and is pushing the narrative that they feel is safe? Where are the rest of the people who, the majority of this country, let's face it, the majority are at breaking point and have had enough? Look at that so-called BBC poll, 95%, if we go by that, even though that's historic.
Exactly, 10 years ago, saying multiculturalism has failed.
10 years ago. And 10 years ago, it wasn't such an issue to say it. I don't remember people banned, cancelled, and expected to disappear. Good for Mike for saying he's going to get back on the horse and do his own thing and have his own show. And I think when you actually go through it, like yourself, Dan, like Lawrence, like Calvin, like Mark Stein, you realise actually there's more power in being independent, because you don't have rules and you don't get told when you're really passionate about something and you want to say and you want to use your platform to speak and explain. You don't feel like you can't because you're told by the powers that be that you're not allowed to say that. But where are we supposed to go? Are we supposed to just disappear into the woods and
exactly? Well, that's what they want.
The majority of the country are going to get to a point where they're not going to be silenced. They're not going to not be allowed to say the things that they want to say. And like you said earlier about hurty words, I cannot believe, having studied law and spent years studying it, I cannot believe that people are up in court having trials, criminal cases over words, let alone people being convicted over them. We have freedom of speech. We have a right to a jury. We have right to freedom of expression. This country has lost its mind.
Totally. And by the way, the idea that with this growing independent media, you can just pretend that your husband, Lawrence, is no longer a factor in this country, or Katie Hopkins is no longer a factor in this country, or Tommy Robinson is no longer a factor in this country. It's for the birds. You can't do it. And Leilani, I was actually reading through yesterday, a whole load of this documentation has leaked from, well, it's been released. This is from the whole Fox News coverage of the 2020 election. And, they're caught up in these lawsuits. And Sean Hannity, who's their #1 rated presenter, was on a WhatsApp group with Rupert Murdoch and Lachlan Murdoch and Suzanne Scott, who's the chief executive of Fox News, because even Sean Hannity, the top rated presenter, the top paid presenter, he's been there since the first days of Fox News, is ultimately told who he is allowed to interview, because he was being told you're not allowed to interview Donald Trump, and Donald Trump isn't allowed free speech. He's not allowed to come on our station and say that the Fox News coverage hasn't been accurate. And I just thought, God, Sean Hannity, at that point, don't you just think, I'm rich, I'm so powerful, go and do this yourself. Do you know what I mean? But the point being, Leilani, is that everyone to some extent is controlled in the mainstream media. And I admit that, obviously I did push the boundaries as far as I could, but there would be moments during COVID or during Brexit or in my coverage of Meghan and Harry, whatever it happened to be, when the bosses would say, no, you can't go there.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the small amount of people that own all of the mainstream media across the world, the Murdochs, they don't just own, a couple of papers in England. It's like you said, across the world, Australia, the USA. So everybody kind of gets controlled and said and gets put in this little box of what these are the parameters. As long as you stay in between these little parameters here, you can kind of say what you wish, but just don't step across that line and you'll be fine. And so, yeah, Sean Hannity and loads of them, but you see a lot of the independents now in America speaking out. Tucker can basically say whatever he wants, Megyn Kelly, all of them, as soon as they've left the mainstream media in the USA, they've been able to say what they want. And I think it's everywhere, Dan. It's absolutely everywhere. The only way you can kind of get to any truth is by looking at independent media and getting a few different voices from it. Always go to a couple of different sources and do it that way. That's the only thing you can do. You just cannot trust the mainstream media.
So it's all kicked off after Lucy Connolly, myself, and Alison Phillips were effectively cancelled by the woke London restaurant Joe Allen, a fixture on the entertainment circuit for years, after I posted what I thought was an innocent, celebratory picture of us celebrating Lucy's freedom. Remember, this time last year, she was in jail. Now, I got a call from Tommy Brethren, the general manager of Joe Allen. That call, which I decided to make public, has now gone viral. But what's so shocking is that there are already discrepancies in terms of what he was telling me on that call and what the truth was. So during our phone call, he made out as if there had been a massive backlash against Joe Allen for hosting us at the restaurant. By the way, I stress that this was all paid for by ourselves. Actually, Lucy and Ray, her husband, the Conservative councillor, shouted us, which was very lovely. And when I said on the show yesterday, based on what Tommy Brethren had told me in the phone call, that the bill was £390, Raymond actually said, no, it was £534 that we spent in this Joe Allen restaurant. But my superstar panel who are with me, Elizabeth Fox and Leilani Dowding, Leilani actually was doing a little bit of super sleuthing on this and discovered that despite what this woke guy told me in the phone call, there were actually only two troll posts that made any negative comments about the fact that myself, Alison Pearson, and Lucy Connolly had been at this restaurant. The first was a guy called Tim Lambert, who said totally okay with being tagged in with the UK's worst racists. Okay, so there's that whole racist term again. And then this guy, and this was the one that he read out to me in the call, Nate Maker 2, serves racists so it's infected with rats. Now, we've looked into this Nate Maker 2, and he's a hard leftist. That profile picture, the cover picture there, says, "Long live the student intifada." So this hard leftist on a campaign against anyone who is in any way on the right was able to totally drive what Joe Allen did. Now, of course, this has backfired because the phone call has been listened to now well over 1 million times. There's been a huge celebrity reaction on this to the right. But I think the thing that has pleased me most are the ordinary folk who are just saying enough of this. So even though there were only 2 comments about the fact that Lucy Connolly, Alison Pearson and myself decided to dine in that restaurant, since the phone call being released, there are hundreds now. I'll just read some of them out to you. Josie Simpson wrote, "Unwelcoming to anybody that offends, complaining fake customers or doesn't go along with the restaurant's political views, avoid at all costs." Graham Wells, "I will no longer go here as they don't welcome law-abiding members of the public. They only wish to have the minority of left-wing complaining people who wouldn't even eat here. Tommy, you should hold your head in shame." Rob Pountney said, "I pay to eat, not be judged." Gareth Roynan said, "Make sure you don't take a photo and post it as they will ring you up and ask you to take it down. They are quick enough to take nearly £400, over 500 actually for the meal, which wasn't very good, then have the cheek to ring you up the following day to take a picture down. Shame on them. Go woke, go broke. Shame on you all. Hope you go bankrupt after treating paying customers like that. If you've got any decency about you, ring Dan Wootton and donate his bill to a charity of his choice." From Paul Whitaker, "One comment against Dan Wootton eating at Joe Allen's from a guy with his pick as a stormtrooper from Star Wars, so they phoned Dan asking him to remove his photo, tagging the restaurant. Shame on you, Joe Allen, won't be visiting again." Rick McWaney, "Boycott Joe Allen." Sean Coyle, "I've just seen the video by Dan. A lesson will be learned here for sure." actually calling a customer to remove a tag for a night they enjoyed at the restaurant because some armchair activist trolls decided to brandish and label your customer? Whatever Joe Allen restaurant is something within your control, as it's your page. You can mute and block said content from said trolls, and they would not have been aware. But no, instead you decided to bite the hand that feeds the survival of this business. Stephen Pearson said, boycott Joe Allen's after the way they treated Dan Wootton. David Gilbert said, do you realise your political views are part of their customer interactions? See Dan Wootton's experience for information. So this went on and on and on, and I am so grateful for the support. And I do also understand people who say, look, this is an independent restaurant. You don't want to destroy them. And that, of course, is not what I'm attempting to do. But at the same time, I just think if I was to say silence about this, am I now going to feel like someone of my political persuasion should feel like they can't post a picture at any restaurant? No, we need to teach these restaurants a lesson. But I did offer the opportunity for Tommy to come back on the show today so that we could have had a respectful discussion. He refused to do so. Here's a reminder, by the way, of what happened in that awful phone call.
Onto our site, Ferv's racist, so he's infested with rocks. I mean, that's just one post that I've got so far.
And you thought it was a good idea, did you, because of some trolls, to call up a paying customer to your restaurant and read them out the troll post? Do you have a problem with me eating in your restaurant?
Dan, not at all. I mean, this is a very difficult situation for us as a small independent restaurant.
So would you ask people if they were from the Green Party, for example, or anyone on the left? Would you think it would be appropriate for you to call them up and ask them to take their post down?
I would call anybody. I would call anybody to ask them if they could just take it down if it had a negative impact on the restaurant itself, if it was having a negative impact on the business. Yeah, of course I would. I mean, Dan, you would do the same thing.
No, I absolutely would not. You don't know a thing about me if you think I would do that. I believe in free speech. I believe in a capitalist society. We were paying customers to your restaurant. What you're effectively saying is that only people who have a particular political philosophy would you welcome tagging into your restaurant. I've never heard something so offensive in my life. So you've literally called me out of the blue on a Monday morning on my mobile phone, having eaten in your restaurant. We paid, how much was our bill on Saturday night?
£390.
So we paid £390 to eat in your restaurant. Rather than being grateful, you're calling me up and saying you want me to remove a tag on a social media post. And Lucy Connolly made the point that, of course, the people who were trolling, and there were only two, were never going to eat in Joe Allen anyway.
I didn't pick up, on anyone's staring or giving us funny looks. Like you said, and people just enjoying their time, seem really, jovial. And no, I didn't feel uncomfortable at all the whole time we were in there. Very much doubt that any one of those trolls on Facebook, Wokebook as it is now, has ever been or ever will go to Joe Allen's because, they're too busy sitting behind their phones and their laptops, firing off tweets about people being fat and racist. Read the room. People are really unhappy with things in the UK at the minute. We are the silent majority, and unfortunately, the minority are so loud online, and they make everybody believe that this is what everybody thinks and this is what everybody wants. Yeah.
I mean, Leilani Dowding, it was so shocking when you told me, Dan, there were only two. Because after the phone call, I'd sort of assumed that his page must have been flooded, that it must have been some sort of campaign. You know how the left do these campaigns. Yeah. But it was two comments.
Well, I couldn't believe it because I saw it obviously on your ex. And I thought, well, let me go and have a look. I thought, this poor guy doesn't really understand how to be, stand up to these people, because that's what you have to do. You have to grow some balls and you have to stand up to them. Can you imagine you, Betty, me getting offended by some silly, again, hurty words, right? So I thought, let me go and have a look. And I just couldn't believe it because there was the one that he read out. There was one more. And that was it. And I thought, you know what? He could have done this so differently because, as you said, and as Lucy said, these are never organic. It's not organic for these Facebook posts, and it was certainly not organic. The people that, you know, wrote to Ofcom for Mark Stein, for you, for Father Calvin, and for Lawrence Fox. They aren't people that watch GB News, just like these are not people that go and eat in John Allen's, right? They weren't there judging the food. They were judging, you know, you, because they'd seen this post somewhere, and that then, which also, by the way, should not be allowed when you write reviews to, unless you've been there, you shouldn't even be allowed to write a review about it. So yeah, going back to it, I couldn't believe it. I thought, you know, what the best thing for that guy to have done was just to get a few people to counteract it. So I was going to go on there, write something nice saying, wonderful people, wonderful clientele, counteract the trolls. That's what you have to do, you know. And because I remember it happened to Adam Brooks. They went off and attacked his pub.
Yes,
so he was just,
the
you know,
lefties.
and they're lefties, and that's what, unfortunately, what they do. But you have to stand up for it, to it. You know, you have to really, you know, just grow some, and say you're not going to have it.
Because what I really worry about, Elizabeth, is like a segregated society. And I think we are heading there. Because why would someone like me want to go to a restaurant and spend good money on a place where I know I'm not welcome? And it was very obvious that this guy was woke and that the restaurant is woke, because they took those two complaints so seriously. Now, obviously, you're the wife of Lawrence Fox, and I just wondered if you've ever had any trouble when you've been out, or ever felt like you're unwelcome eating somewhere, because, you know, it never happens to people on the left, ever. It's only people on our side of politics. I mean, whether you call it the right or the conservative side or the freedom fighting side, however you want to put it, it's only on our side that we have to deal with this type of shit.
Yeah, it is, because the hypocritical left, who are very much hashtag be kind and equality and inclusivity, they're actually very nasty. You know, they're very malicious, and unfortunately it's backfired on that restaurant massively, so for him even attempting to bow to the mob. Why would you even consider that? We need to get back to a time where it's okay for people to disagree, whether it's politically, whether it's opinions, whether it's, you know, haircuts, fashion, whatever. It's okay to say, I disagree with somebody. You didn't go there, Dan. You didn't pay money to be judged, like that comment said. No. You paid for food. You paid to go and dine. And yes, it is the majority of people on our side, on the right, if you like, that are judged the most, vilified the most. And, you know, to be honest, we've been quite lucky. Like I'm sure Lawrence has had it previously when we weren't together, but since we've been together and we've been out, he actually gets a lot of positive people come up to him. We've been out to restaurants, and you know the establishments we've been eating at have actually said, these drinks are on us, or your food's on us. You know, we stand with you. Thank you for speaking up. So we actually get a lot of positive. But yeah, I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
That was the crazy thing. Yeah, the crazy thing is when I walked in to the restaurant, actually, a lovely guy, he wasn't working there, you know, he was just a customer, came up and said, I love what you do. And, you know, so, yeah, it's a real shame. But I just think this is the slippery slope. And if we don't start calling this stuff out, and it becomes just accepted that people on the right, who, by the way, agree with the vast majority of this country, are potentially going to be banned from restaurants, then it is a dark, dark path that we are heading. And I'm not being, I don't think, hyperbolic to say, Leilani, you know, when I think about what happened in America, for example, and you obviously split your time between the US and the UK, you know, conservatives were being banned. Trump MAGA supporters were being banned from certain eateries and things around 2020, you know, that type of time, probably even earlier. And look at where it led, you know, to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We don't want to go down that path.
No, absolutely not. But I will say, as Lizzie was saying, when she came to my local, with Lawrence, my local pub landlord absolutely loved him, welcomed me and wanted photos with him, everything else. And you and Alan would be more than welcome up in my area, I think, to come in and to have some nice pub grub up here. But you know, we don't want this. We don't want to see such divisions, such hateful words. As Lizzie said, we really need to be able to accept other people's differences of opinion. We've got to stop making absolutely every single little thing political. If you want to go out for a meal, why can't we just leave the politics behind? You know, why does this restaurant owner have to get involved in it? Why do these trolls have to come and say something? And it's getting a little bit like that Black Mirror episode Nosedive. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where it's all just, oh my goodness, it's like it is now, where everything's ratings. Everything you do, it's a star for this or 5 stars for that, and it becomes like a social credit system, and it's all about, you know, what your likes are and what your stars are, and we see this with all these things. And this guy's worried about 2 Facebook reviews. Like, what has it come to when he's not worried about people walking in and word of mouth and good food and a good experience? He's worried about 2 stupid posts on Facebook, and this whole thing, I think, is a really massive problem in society, where we're just so worried now about social media and our stars and our likes, and it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, just like in the show Nosedive. It's just, you know, and it's a slippery slope, as you say.
It is indeed. It is indeed beautifully put. Thank you so much to my wonderful superstar panel, Leilani Dowding and Elizabeth Fox. Adore you both. Thank you both so much, and hope to see you very, very soon. Now, of course, we will reveal today's greatest Britain Union jackass in just one moment. But first, to your comments. PZ3946 says, just ignore Bob Villan and he'll disappear into obscurity where he belongs. Well, I would love to. But of course the mainstream media are never going to ignore him. Yorkshire Raider said, Nigel is so weak, I can't vote reform with him in charge. Kath Lissenden, this made me giggle. Lammy makes Joey Essex look intelligent. Jackie Gummer says, still won't follow Mike Graham until he apologises to Tommy. And Life Educator 101 on the whole issue of Joe Allen says, such a shame, but well done, Dan, for calling him back to give him the opportunity to resolve the fit. If he chose not to, unfortunately, it shows more about him than it does about you. Such a shame. And yet, just to say, I did offer Joe Allen the opportunity to come on yesterday, to come on today. I think it's important to call out what happened, but at the same time, I also was open to there being a resolution, but they clearly don't want there to be a resolution. Okay, a reminder of your Union Jackass nominees. Samir Shah, BBC chairman, nominated by It's Only Me, 44 for that car crash appearance at the Select Committee yesterday. The aforementioned Bob Villan, nominated by Scott Fly, 239, because he's now playing the victim. And Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader, nominated by Matt Cass, 48, who says he's like Zach Polanski's embarrassing uncle, which truly is saying something. Okay, the results are in. It was close today. In third place with 29%, Samir Shah. The runner-up with 30%, Ed Davey. But today's Union Jackass with 41% of your vote, Bob Villan. And today's greatest Britain is the Restore UK leader Rupert Lowe, nominated by Rhea Morrigan, who says for holding the government to account every single day, donating his salary to worthy causes, not caring about name calling, and giving us hope and inspiration. And I am very excited to say that I am going to be attending tonight Restore UK's first annual dinner, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll tell you about it on the show tomorrow, though we've got a big one tomorrow, of course, because it is budget day. Do not trust the mainstream media. We will give the analysis that you won't get anywhere else, and we're going to have Father Calvin Robinson and Mike Graham providing budget analysis. You're certainly not going to get that from the regime media, so I do hope you'll join us live tomorrow. We are sticking around, though, for the uncancelled after show, which is over on Substack tonight. You can head there right now, www.outspoken.live. Our Royal Mastermind, Angela 11, on deck with all of the day's royal news. But I do hope to see you live for our budget special, 5 p.m. UK time tomorrow, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Do remember that we are now available as a podcast too, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, actually, although you can watch on video now on Spotify, which is quite cool. Please do rate and review. It really helps us as an independent show. 5 stars, if you may. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.